All right. Well, how about we were reading this story by Vinny Bonsignor, John, in the Las Vegas Review Journal. Why are you smiling
Funny, he
already?
gets some pretty good access.
He does. This is what he wrote on Monday. One of the subjects of a Zoom meeting last week, Thursday, with NFL team owners and Roger Goodell was the health of players amid the coronavirus pandemic, particularly on game day. The idea of tarping off the first 8 rows of the stadium and maybe having advertising on that was discussed. There was one dissenting vote. Mark Davis forcefully expressed his misgivings. The measure still passed 31 to 1, requiring teams to tarp off the first 8 rows, but having the ability to sell advertising on them. I can't imagine telling one fan they cannot attend the opening game of our inaugural season in Vegas at the most magnificent stadium that they helped build, let alone tell 3,500 fans that their seats are gone for the entire season, Davis said. Those seats are in the front rows are some of our most ardent fans, including members of the famed Black Hole. You think I want to sell advertising on their seats? Creativity will be necessary. One of our executives came up with a solution, one which Vegas will be familiar, but the league shot it down dismissively. We're not ready to give up yet. We will do everything we can to see that all our friends are able to attend every game this season.
Things are getting a little dicey in Vegas. That's not ideal. The league's already telling them that you're wrong, and they're clearly on a page that no one else in the league is on.
Well, and not just that they said no or that they voted against, but the word he used was dismissively, meaning I'm kind of offended by the way they responded to my suggestion. That's how
Yeah,
I interpret that.
and honestly, the NFL, if you flipped it on their side, was kind of like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about? This is moronic."
This is not a debate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Look,
this.
anyone that listened to us for a long time know that we did not think they would leave Oakland because we didn't think they could. We bet against them. They left. We were wrong. Once they were gone, I think you and I both said, can't blame them for taking the deal they took. It's not like Oakland was easy for them. Oakland was going to be really difficult for them to make work and really expensive. And Nevada just dropped a pot of money in their laps,
And the Raiders didn't have any money.
and they didn't have any money. So I don't. I mean, like I get it. You and I have talked to Mark Davis. I don't think we've interviewed him before. We've talked to him out at camp over the course of a few years when we were out there doing radio. And we both totally get it. But I think what we're seeing here partly is that the NFL either was smart about it or they dodged a bullet if they ever really considered putting the Raiders and the Chargers in LA together. Because the Chargers would be a big story without Stan Kroenke's ability to run the whole show in LA. And right now the Raiders are, I mean, desperately it seems like fighting against what the rest of the league is accepting as the status quo, which we have to assume is in large part because of not because they love their fans more, although I do think Mark does have some affinity for the black hole, but because of the money.
Well, I think if you take the two and you separate them out, Vegas was the only option that made sense for Mark because they were going to finance a large percentage of it for a guy that didn't have any money, and they could use this hotel tax. And I've had multiple people tell me this. Whenever you go, God, your business is recession proof. You can't never lose. And whenever you say that to someone who's successful, they'll always tell you that is just not true.
Yeah.
At any moment, something can happen. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that, especially when times are good and everyone's making money. These last 3 or 4 months have been just a kick in the dick for every human, right? We've all had to kind of like, whoa. It is a good reminder that things that are out of your control, let alone, I'm not talking about like screwing up a product or treating your consumer shitty, just something that no one's doing anything wrong. And just fucking Corona comes, right? And who did that directly impact the most? Places like Vegas, who shut down the casinos. And where all the tax money was one that Mark Davis was going to get was based on the rooms, which I would have said foolproof plan, right? Because casinos are always going to be packed. Whether the economy's up or down, people are always going to Vegas. And then they had to shut down. And then you factor in that unlike Kroenke, who we'll get to in a second, Mark was so dependent on this money. Well, yeah, he's the owner of the team. He's kind of partners with these guys right now, right? Like the casinos, who I would imagine, and they'll never admit to this, they always acting like fans bought all the seats. I think it's fair to assume casinos bought a large percentage of the seats. I would imagine they bought the huge percentage of the suites. Because when you go with people in the know to Levi's, they'll always go, oh, that's Google suite. That's the big construction suite. It's Guy Haberman and John Middlecoff, if we were rich as shit, aren't buying a seat at an NFL stadium, right? We may buy for seats. People that buy suites are corporations. It's why they say it's so big to be in DC or Philly or New York or the Bay Area to sell suites, because individuals can't afford that. Even rich guys aren't going to pay that much money for a suite. It's going to come out of corporate money. Well, who the fuck do you think bought all the suites in Vegas? And that money was going to be huge. Let's just throw an arbitrary guess. Average $300,000 a suite this year for Mark Davis, right? Let's just say he's got 150, 75 suites. The number was going to be huge, the amount of money he was going to get in, money that he was not getting at the Coliseum. Well, where was that money going to go? Pay back the loan that he took out to help finance the stadium with Vegas and to pay the league. Well, that money's not coming in right now, and he's not like a Jerry Jones or even a Jed who hasn't had that much money before the stadium, but then got the stadium, made a ton, and was able to just put some in the bank, right? Where Stan is a good example of why the Vegas thing never would have worked with Dean and Mark, because unlike Vegas, which can help Mark with the costs in California are just outrageous to build anything. Anyone listening knows it's fucking expensive to get your AC unit put in because the labor's so expensive, let alone remodel a house, let alone build a home, right? It does, let alone build a stadium. And what do they call, like, people like Albert Breer, people in the league joke about the stadium, call it like the $5 billion project. And if it wasn't for one of the richest men in the history of the world, the LA would have been a problem because Dean's not bringing anything to the table. He's not selling any seats. And the problem would have been if Mark and Dean would have been combined, who would have been able to afford? Even Stan Kroenke, remember a month ago, had to ask the league for like an extra $500 million, and they gave it to him. But think Mark and Dean would ask for an extra $2 billion, right? Their number would have been exponentially higher that they dodged a bullet there. And they might dodge a bullet with Mark because they could always kind of help him out. But it's going to be an expensive endeavor where if he had a richer owner move, like Stan can just pay the majority of the cost and kind of eat it while it sucks like every other owner in the league. Mark can't. It's why I think you feel the anxiety. And I'm not blaming Mark. He had no control over this pandemic and the shutdown. But when you see a 31-1, you get a guy who's back up against a corner where the other guys aren't freaking out as much. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, because even Stan can't even vote with him, right? As we learned a few years ago. Like, Stan's like, no, I'm taken care of. Sorry, my loyalty is elsewhere now.
Can't vote with who?
With Mark.
Did he? Oh, he didn't vote for Vegas?
Well, I don't know that he did or didn't. I'm just saying, like, there was a point in time where they were kind of together, right?
Oh, the Rams and Raiders.
Well, the Chargers and Dean and Mark Davis were kind of.
Oh, I thought
on
you
the
meant
same
Stan.
page, right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But then it became just too beneficial for Dean to roll
with Stan.
Yeah. And this deal, I think probably
that's where Mark has said over and over he thought he kind of got rat fucked in the deal, right?
Right.
Remember, he was very bitter, even though he's like, I've got over it, took him, but it hurt. Remember, he was personally offended the way he got treated.
Stan would be against Vegas from a standpoint of proximity, but really in terms of somebody else's do they reduce does the relocation fee that Mark owes, does that come out of what Stan owes?
I would imagine if me and you sat down with Stan Kroenke and said, yeah, some of the fans that bought season tickets that might have bought Rams season tickets, but he's like, I would imagine the one thing he'd cop to is, well, the majority of money we're all searching for here is not individuals, it's corporate money. And the corporate money from Vegas wouldn't have come to me anyway, right. So it doesn't really affect me. And the corporate money that I have locked up for whatever they call that, SoFi. Oh, yeah, SoFi and Allegiant. So the SoFi Stadium wouldn't have been affected by Vegas. So we're kind of independent that way. It's not as big a deal. And we play in a different conference. It might affect Dean more because the conference, the connection, like if you're a Bronco fan, you can go see the Broncos there. You don't only have to wait for them to come into L.A. or the Chiefs. Or like if you're a Patriot fan, they may come to SoFi. You can just go see them there. You can see them in L.A. But I do think there's an element of just it kind of worked out perfectly for the L.A. situation that they got the richest guy or one of them in the league to handle this beyond expensive endeavor. Now the Raider situation, if no fans are allowed all season long, that's going to have a huge economic impact on everything in Vegas, right? Because these casinos are paying a lot of money, just cutting the check to build the thing.
I think you could also say, even if some degree of fans are allowed, remember what you said at the beginning of this, part of, and I do think I've seen it with hockey, Vegas will support their local teams. But part of the projections on fans was people coming from out of town. So even if you have fans to some degree, I wonder, let's say it's 50% capacity. Is 50% capacity, will Vegas fill that locally every week, or will you still miss out because you don't have fans traveling in, staying at hotels? Maybe less people are just traveling in general. Right, that's the other element here is
it is an area that's very, very dependent on people flying in general, non-football, right, to function.
Yeah,
like
which also just
strip,
raises the risks of everything you're doing.
Yeah, it's the perfect combination of disaster for an NFL move that's based in Vegas, right? Year one. The timing, there's an unlucky element of I could understand if I'm Mark Davis, where I just look in the mirror some days and be like, I can't fucking believe. Like, if this happened year 3 or year 5 or whatever, we would have been okay. But year one, when everyone's put all their chips in the middle of the table for me to build this thing, Vegas is giving us a bunch of money. Because it was shady the way they did it.
Like, if you're just doing your spreadsheet, it doesn't cost $50,000 to move. It costs more than that, right?
Well, they started spending money this offseason like it wasn't going to be that big of an issue. They just kept their foot to the pedal, which I'll give the Raiders one thing. They've never acted cheap with their players, right? They've always been willing to spend money, even though they haven't had money like other teams, with bonuses and stuff, or tried as well as possible. But you could argue Khalil Mack. But that's a huge reason that they wanted this new stadium. And now the whole point of the new stadium was to get these revenues in, that it might not be able to happen definitely year one, right? It's already, they were supposed to have the draft in Vegas. Like, it was all supposed to just be kind of the Raiders' year. They were having big football games on primetime games early. It was going to be in Vegas. It was going to be a big deal. And now they're just, LA's getting fucked too, but he can handle the hit.
Yeah. Is it a stretch to say being good matters even a little more if this situation, like, in that, are people more likely to stick with you financially? Advertisers more likely to come to you?
Yeah.
If you're a 10-win football team instead of a 6-win football team? Or
I think it'll be pretty important to get off to a strong start in a weird year where people can just it resonates with you. Your team looks cool. You want to be a part of it. So people go, when I get my stuff up and running, or let's make an area in the budget for them. We want to be with them.
Yeah,
right?
If I'm a local advertiser and I just got to decide where my money's going to go, maybe it's money that would otherwise have been in a casino, but now it's not, or would have otherwise been in the airport, and now it's not.
Well, think about this. The pandemic right now, if you ran a business in Dallas or Pittsburgh, let's say, and you knew you had to market sooner than later, you wouldn't hesitate getting associated with the Cowboys or the Steelers, for example, right? If that's something that you desired to do, right, and wanted to use them to help grow your business, it wouldn't change your mindset because of the pandemic. It might change the timing of when you could do it, but you wouldn't be like, well, whether they're good or bad, it doesn't matter. Where I think the Raiders, and I think both LA teams, definitely, maybe the Chargers don't really matter, but definitely the Rams, they are pretty dependent on these new markets, given the amount of money that they want to generate on being good. I can't see just casinos wanting to be associated if they have 3 straight 6-win seasons, right?
Yeah.
Because we know what that looks like. It's boring.
But that might be a little far out to. Obviously winning over a 3-year period matters. The question is winning this year, does that help you in any way? It doesn't hurt you.
It doesn't hurt you. I think there is a lot of pressure on them being successful this year.
Yeah.
Just make the playoffs, especially with 7 teams.